Let's keep delving into all things US politics, the election and the aftermath. Phil Coorey, the Australian Financial Review political editor, is with me. So let's just start on where we're at. The legal challenges, which they're sort of being outlined. We'll have Donald Trump in 42 minutes appearing, so we'll see what he has to say. But, I mean, it seems quixotic. Probably the votes in Pennsylvania might be the best chance about whether or not the state was allowed to let ballots come in for 3 days. So the Supreme Court might have a view on that. But the rest of it, it just doesn't seem enough there so far. A few whistleblowers. I'm sure things have gone wrong with the election and there's been the odd person that's done something. We're talking about tens of thousands of votes, though. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I think it was the sort of point Joe Hockey tried to make the other day but didn't quite get right. I mean, the US electoral system is a dog's breakfast. And at every level in every state there's irregularities and errors and so forth. It's a shocking system, but there's absolutely no evidence to suggest there's sort of large-scale fraud that swung a whole state, especially when you've got margins of tens of thousands. I mean, if it was a few hundred votes, you'd probably be entitled to complain. But look, no one's buying it, Tom. I thought it was very significant over the weekend. All the world leaders, including Scott Morrison, the Europeans, have called it. So no one's buying the Trump, the Trump tactic, other than a few of his hardcore supporters now, like Rudy Giuliani and Senator Graham and a few of those sorts of people. So it looks, for all intents and purposes, done and dusted. But there's clearly a couple of acts yet to play, and they're going to be spectacular.
So on that, I mean, there are reports at the moment, and they're just that perhaps even Jared Kushner and Ivanka are saying behind the scenes, hey, this might be the end of the road. We'll see. Republicans, though, are coming out. Just the psychology of Donald Trump and how it might play out. I mean, you once played a few holes of golf with Donald Trump in your time as a US correspondent, so we're all pop psychologists now.
Gave me a huge insight into 20 years' time.
Where to from here?
Look, I'm a bit against the grain here. I think when he does go, he'll go, and we probably won't see much of him because he is such a narcissist. He actually doesn't care about anyone or anything except himself. He doesn't even care about the people who voted for him, to be honest. And I suspect once it's done and it's irrevocable and he's out, I can't really see him hanging around and sort of campaigning or agitating or, remaining a presence. So I suspect the fact he's playing golf now seems to me he's already checked out to a large extent. So that's my pop psychology.
So the point being,
wrong. So
if the legal challenges are just looking doomed, if the main one, let's say Pennsylvania fails, that's the point, right? He's not going to sit there being called a loser for 2 or 3 months, humiliated essentially. It's jumping a bit before he's pushed essentially, and he goes off. He's in Florida. He's still the president, and he can sort of make fun of it with a few tweets. But this talk of him getting forced out of the White House just seems crazy.
We don't know, but look, I thought actually Andrew Bolt summed it up best last week on his blog. That this is Trump, who cannot lose. As he said just before the election, he regards losing as harder than winning, and it's him trying to sort of fabricate an exit. That I didn't lose, I was robbed. He just wants to leave that legacy. Never mind the damage he's going to cause to the US system. On the way out, and then the damage he'll inflict on the trust in democracy. But that's
right. So that's
like everything. It's collateral damage, isn't it?
That's the point around his legacy. The most damaging thing in his view would be losing. So it's not losing. The election was stolen. The polls meant that he was suppressed. His voters didn't get, etc. For Australia, the first talk of policy has been on climate. Some strong words from Joe Biden. Look around, obviously rejoining Paris, getting allies to do more. He will most likely, not certainly, but most likely have a Senate that's not friendly to him. So how much will the policies change from the US, and how much will it really put in terms of pressure on Australia, do you think?
First thing, the US needs to have a policy. Right? They don't really have one since Trump came in. So just rejoining Paris would get them back to where Australia is and everyone else is, and as part of being that accord. Will he set targets, or will he try and do something different? I mean, the government here is of the view that he's actually more centrist than the popular view is, that he's actually going to probably opt for a more technology-based solution, which is what the Morrison government's plan is.
And they're saying that all today as well.
And they were saying it yesterday, and they were saying it before the election too. So they're not as spooked as maybe people would like them to be on climate change. I mean, even the Labor Party here, they've got problems. Joel Fitzgibbon was out of the blocks very quickly yesterday to warn his colleagues on the record not to be lulled into thinking climate change won the election for Biden and not to go too far. So it's not a bed of roses for Labor either. And Joel Fitzgibbon's no longer just a sort of a lone voice. There's quite a bit of weight behind his views inside the Labor Party now too. So
the peace accord there, a bit of a fragile one.
Well, yeah, but that's not a very sort of, super target-friendly peace accord either.
Well, when you need a peace accord on something, it's probably not a great sign. So I thought one of the interesting elements, though, to not just the US, but it's other trading partners that are indicating this. Now, yes, China's 2060 and they could have heaps more emissions before then, but is there some pressure on the Australian government? And what's... I mean, the reluctance on 2050 seems to be more about what would happen within the party, because yes, they say you'd have to step out, but we don't actually have to say every single element of how we get there.
No, look,
it's so far away.
Look, 2050, I suspect the government will commit to that sooner than later, because it's such a non-committal commitment. I mean, business wants it because they invest on the long-term cycle, and it's good for business to at least, as Ines Willick said yesterday, it may be a long time in politics, but it's only 2 investment cycles in business. So it's good to have it, but it is ultimately meaningless unless you have milestones along the way as to how you're going to get there. So we've sort of got this thing at the moment where the government has a milestone of 2030 but no long-term target. Labor has a long-term target but no milestone. Yeah. So we need a sort of merger of those two.
Which might happen next year on that timetable.
It could, they might do it. Look, Scott Morrison, you can sort of tell last year he said in Parliament, we'll probably get there anyway. And that was sort of code for him saying, I'm not going to mandate it because the party will blow up, but, if we do this technology thing, it'll happen. So he's still got to manage that party, the rebels in his ranks and in his base, and that's why he's not committing to it. But I suspect if he feels at some stage he can say it without blowing the joint up, he'll do it. Whereas from Labor, we need them to sort of tell us before the election, which Anthony Albanese has said he will do, what their sort of mileposts will be along the way to get there. So,
and they're going to be sort of waiting for the government's own commitment on Glasgow.
Yeah,
so if it goes a fair way, they go, let's not outbid them again. Yeah. Hey, just finally, I just thought it was interesting from Anthony Albanese on Friday to say, hey, this relationship that Scott Morrison has with Donald Trump should be leveraged. Contact him. So we've gone back and checked the words, because it was put to him today, you said pick up the phone. He said, I didn't say pick up the phone. But making contact, I don't know what else that would be, maybe a Twitter DM.
Could mind vibe him.
It's pretty unrealistic to think Scott Morrison's going to call up and go, now, look, Donald...
And it wouldn't have got the right result either. He probably wouldn't have taken the call. If he did, go, who are you? And he would have been bugger off and hang up again. So, and I think as people say, he can imagine if a foreign leader picked up the phone in the middle of a disputed election here and told someone what to do, it wouldn't have gone down well. No, look... PM used a form of words that a lot of other world leaders were using last week, and that was let the institution sort it out. And I think that's sort of, at this stage, has been vindicated in terms of, the right result as reflecting the will of the voters is going to happen. Look, if it was a couple of months down the track and Trump was actually refusing to leave and there was some sort of Venezuelan-style standoff, I think then and there there's an opportunity not just for the PM,
because for
the Europeans to pick up phone and say, look, mate, you reckon the joint, you've got to leave.
There are still legal avenues. These things, it's an election. If there's something that's gone on, it might be only one state in the end and it might not even flip something, but these are still things that should be aired. This was an election that had more tension in it than any that you can remember in the US. Yeah. So going down this, not the way he's done it and the rhetoric, but going down the path.
But just let him come to the realisation he's not going to win. But if it goes beyond that realisation and he's still trying to create this alternative reality that he's won and he's refusing to leave, and America gets plunged into some sort of crisis, then there will be a role for other leaders, including our own, to sort of say, look, the alliance is based on shared respect for democracy. On your bike.